At this stage in the accounting program, it's really important that you pay close attention to detail. One of the most important jobs an accountant has is to provide accurate reports to management and other organizations outside the business. If we as accountants and bookkeepers provide sloppy and incorrect reports, management's going to make poor decisions for the business, and our abilities as accountants is also going to come into question. So in computerized accounting, we're going to really be focusing very closely on accuracy. In Chapter 3, you'll begin working in your QuickBooks Online accounts, completing Case 2 for each chapter. You'll first practice the entries in the sample problem, which is the Craig's landscaping business, and then you'll be asked to enter similar entries in the case problems. Everything that you're asked to do in the cases, you will have already practiced in the sample problem. In the case problems, you will be submitting reports. Before you place a report in the Dropbox, you should thoroughly check it, just as you would if you were working in industry as an accountant or bookkeeper. So now I'm going to review with you a few things you need to look for before you place your assignment in the Dropbox. First of all, check to make sure that the report has data. If you save your report as an Excel report, sometimes all the balances will show as zeros in Blackboard. So to prevent this, make sure that you save your report as a PDF file. Now the text is going to tell you to download it as an Excel file, but don't do that. Save it as a PDF. If not, when I bring up your report, it's going to look like this. It's going to be all zeros. So double check that, because there will be no resubmissions for your assignments. You will only have one opportunity to submit, so remember that. Now I'm going to show you an example. So if we go to reports and run a trial balance, make sure that you date your report properly, because if you enter the wrong date here, your report is going to be incorrect. Okay, notice that in your cases you're going to be working in 2025, and QuickBooks will usually automatically default to the current date, which is 2022, so you have to watch your dates very closely. So for example, if you run a trial balance for August 8th, this is what you're going to get. But if you run it for the month of January 2025, then you'll get the report that you're supposed to get. Okay, so be very careful with your dates. Double check the textbook to make sure you're dating your reports properly. And then to export to upload, you would click the little arrow here next to the gear sign, and it'll ask you if you want to export as Excel or a PDF. Choose the PDF, because that way we know that we're going to get numbers when you upload it into Blackboard. So you'll just save this PDF as, for example, Anna Chapter 3 trial balance, and you'd save that to your hard drive and then upload it into Blackboard like you do all of your assignments. Another report that you'll run just about every chapter and that you need to be very careful with is the transaction detail by account. Alright, so of course it's going to come up to the default date. Now your textbook is going to tell you to date your report from January 1st, 2010 to December 31st, 2028. The reason the textbook tells you that is so that every transaction you have entered will show up on the report. And if you've misdated a transaction, for example, entered something in 2022 when you should have entered it in 2025, it'll show up on that report and you can find it and then correct it. What I always do, and it's just a little quicker than having to date it January 1st, 2010 to December 31st, 2028, is just to tell it to run transactions for all dates. So it is going to pick up every single transaction that you have entered into QuickBooks Online, and you can go down the dates and check and make sure everything is in 2025 where it should be. Okay. All right, the next thing you need to be really careful with is to make sure not to duplicate accounts. You're going to be adding accounts when you don't have the account that you need. Sometimes the text will tell you to add the account, and sometimes it just won't be there and you'll need to add it, but you need to double check to make sure that it is not already there. So for example, here is an example of a duplicate checking account. So the checking account already existed, and then the student decided they were going to add another one. So you should never have a duplicate account. Another one is sales of product income. Be careful, either use the sales account when you're setting up your products or use the sales of product income. It's really the same account. You're going to have two revenue accounts, sales or sales of product income, and services. You should not have any other revenue accounts there, so be careful and do not duplicate your accounts. All right, and then last, ask yourself if your accounts are showing up where they need to be showing up. Remember, the trial balance should be in order. It's assets, liabilities, the owner's equity accounts, which is common stock and opening balance equity, revenues, and then expenses. Let me see if I've got an example of that. Okay, so in this trial balance, the student has set up a liability down here with the expenses. And unearned service revenue, which is also a liability, is showing up here, down here with the expenses. Expenses do not have negative or credit values. So that should be the first clue that if I'm listing my expenses here, I shouldn't have any credit balances. And also notice that the accumulated depreciation furniture account is listed down with the expenses instead of being listed up underneath the furniture account. Remember, accumulated depreciation is a contra asset, and it's contra to whatever asset has the depreciation. So for example, machinery and equipment accumulated depreciation is here under machinery and equipment. That's kind of a strange account title, but at least it's in the correct place. This accumulated depreciation should be up underneath furniture original cost. Something else that you'll need to check is to make sure that all accounts have their normal balances. For example, assets should always have debit balances. Accumulated depreciation will be a credit. Liabilities are going to have credit balances, so we've got a little string of liabilities there. Your owner's equity accounts will have credits. Your revenue accounts will have credits, and expenses should be debits. So double check that. And another way to check it is if you run a transaction detail by account. When you're scrolling through your account balances, notice you have the account balances in bold. They should not be negative. If you've got a negative account balance, then something is wrong. You will have a negative balance in accumulated depreciation. So notice that the accumulated depreciation on this furniture here is a negative $750, and that's okay. Only for the accumulated depreciation should you have negative balances. So make sure you review your reports carefully. Just don't enter your transactions and then run the reports and submit them without even looking at them. That's not a good way to submit your assignments, and it's definitely not a good way to submit reports to your supervisors. So remember, once again, you're going to get one chance to submit. If you submit the wrong report under the wrong assignment, you will not be able to resubmit the correct one. You will get a 0. So it's critical that you go and check your reports. Your grade will depend on your having checked your reports. The last thing I want to mention concerns correcting your errors. You're going to be completing cases in chapters 3 through 10. I'm going to check your assignments, and if I find errors, I'm going to send you instructions like these for correcting your QuickBooks account. It's very important that you enter those corrections before moving on to the next chapter. If not, you're just going to be carrying your errors over, and you'll get another deduction for the same error in the next chapter. So make sure you check your email daily, especially after submitting an assignment. If you're having trouble entering an account or a transaction, first go back and check the chapter, because everything you're entering in your case was practiced in the sample problem in the chapter. And if you're still uneasy about it, feel free to ask. You can email or call me, because when you work in industry, you'll really make a huge mess in the accounting records if you just enter what you think is correct. So I'm happy to help you with your cases, but I will not be able to help you with your end of course comprehensive. So it's very important that you learn as you go on your cases. So as you work, keep in mind that accuracy and attention to detail are everything. In this course, you're going to be putting your accounting skills to work. In the accounting industry, you have to be accurate to be successful.